Welcome to Let's Get Creative with Sam, the podcast. I'm Sam Rawlins and I'm a children's creative counsellor. That means I help kids unlock their imaginations and explore the amazing world of creativity. But being creative can also be a great way to take care of our minds and feelings, which is super important. In this podcast, we'll be doing all sorts of fun things. We'll be sharing creative tips and tricks that can help us feel good, interviewing other awesome creative folks in the industry who use creativity for mental well-being, and maybe even doing some creative challenges together that can help us express ourselves. So buckle up, get ready to unleash your creativity and explore how it can help us feel our best, and let's have some fun. Good morning. What a wonderful week it is. We've got the sun. Yay. How amazing is that for a Monday? So I'm Sam and this is my podcast, Let's Talk About Creativity. And today my amazing guest is Tracy Beavis. Hi, Tracy.
Morning, Sam. Morning, everybody.
Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody who is watching or listening?
Hi, my name's Tracy Beavis. As you can know, you can't see that because it says Forget Me Not Memory Furniture. But I'll tell you about that in a while. So my name's Tracy and I'm up in Doncaster. And yes, we have the sun as well today. It doesn't look like it because I've had to close my blind. It's so bright coming in this morning. So yes, I'm married, live with my husband Andy. I have 3 grown-up children. So I have been through the children phase, worked in schools, and I've now got a little granddaughter who was born in May, so that's lovely. So that's a bit about me.
Thank you so much. So excuse me, goodness me. That's my breakfast, maybe. I've only recently met you, haven't I? It's not that long that we've kind of known each other. And I think I was really inspired by your story, your journey of where you are now. And it's a lot of us go through that, don't we? I'm kind of talking in riddles at the moment, but a lot to do with grief and things like that, So I guess in some ways it can make us feel it as well, even when it's not our stories. Do you want to share a little bit, particularly if we start with like what your title is that you've got on the screen at the moment?
Yeah, so the title you can see on my screen is Forget Me Not Memory Furniture. So this is a journey that started about 7 years ago when I lost my mum. And I'd lost my dad 3 years earlier, just after my 50th birthday. So 3 years later, my mum died. And at the time, I worked in education. I worked in a primary school here where I live in Doncaster. It's sort of the next village along, former pit villages. These were primary, which is like 40 years ago, the miner strikes and most of the pits started to close. But it is still very much a mining community, very close-knit. And the area that I worked in, the school I worked in, is one of the most deprived areas in the UK. Okay. And they determine that by the number of free school meals. So it's not just us saying it was a deprived area. It's a fact. It is one of the most deprived areas. But like salt of the earth people, lots of problems. But it was so rewarding. But when I lost my mum, I decided I needed a career break, and working with children and seeing mums coming in every day with the children triggered me, or the thought of going back triggered me. So I decided to take a career break, and I never went back. So as part of that journey, that's where the FMN came in, the Forget Me Not Memory Furniture, which didn't start off as that. I found my niche, which I started painting furniture, upcycling furniture for myself. And then I moved into a little emporium where I sold furniture, but it just didn't light me up painting it and hope. I enjoyed it, and the therapeutic side of it, got me through my grief. Just being in the moment and creating something, and just all that creative part of it really was what I needed. But as I said, I thought, maybe I could, do this and sell some, which I did. And then one day a lady came to me and asked me, could I do some inherited furniture, a Welsh dress that she had that belonged to her mum and dad. And when I took it back, the reaction I got and how sort of overjoyed she was that she didn't have to get rid of this big ugly brown piece of furniture that didn't go in her home. That was a light bulb moment for me. I thought, this is what I need to do. So very niche, and that's where the Found My Niche came in, which I am now called Found My Niche. So I started off as Found My Niche, but thought it's me that has my niche. My niche was my creativity, my painting the furniture. It wasn't really connecting with the people that I was painting the furniture for. So, but I was very attached to the FMN part of it, the initials. So I kept the FMN, but became Forget Me Not Memory Furniture, because the Forget Me Not itself, the flower, is connected with like dementia and lots of connotations to do with grief. So a lot of people, you see that as a significant, some people might see robins and feathers and things like that, and the Forget Me Not is one of those things. So quite recently, I founded a CIC, which, if people don't know, it's called a community interest company, because as you might have gathered from working out the maths, I'm actually 60 this year, and I'm thinking I'm getting a bit old for humping furniture about. Much as I love it, I'm getting a bit old for it, but I still wanted to do something to help those people that had got bereavements and loss in their lives. And the CIC that I founded, I've called Found My Niche, because as well as being a specialism, a niche is a specialism, it's also a safe place. If you look it up in dictionary, it's a safe space, and that's what I've created. And I now run bereavement cafes, but not just bereavement. And even more recently, but I'm not sure if Sam will want me to talk about this just yet, I've just become accredited in some training that I'm really excited about as well.
Wow, that's just amazing. And kind of like, for you, you work in education, and then you went through your own grief, your own loss of your parents, and I think as well, when it's anybody you lose, that is bereaved, it's a real difficult time, but we're almost meant to just deal with it and just get on with it. And that is so wrong, because grief lasts your life, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think more so I don't know about your community, but certainly mine, it's also a cultural thing, just having to have a stiff upper lip and get on with it. But sort of community wise, again, this mining community is very much, they don't talk about things, they just get on with it, but it doesn't have to be like that. And working with children and having my own children, sort of working through my own grief while trying to support them with their grief, is very real and very challenging. I didn't work with children in school that had grief. We had sort of pastoral officers for that, mentors and things. But certainly dealing with my own children's grief, and now with the grief cafes, there'll be people coming along that have got their own children, that might have had bereavements, and might have there might be grandchildren, or they might be trying to prepare their grandchildren for their demise. I have got people coming who are terminally ill themselves, and have got that anticipatory grief, or families of people that are terminally ill. So it's sort of preparing children for those things. And the training that I've just done is very much thinking about loss in a different way, because loss isn't just death. and bereavement. If we go through our lives and look at our life events, there are so many things that come with loss, and it's all like baggage that we keep piling on and piling on and piling on. And if we don't, find a way of dealing with that, then it can cause more problems down the line. And if that's happening for children, then there's no wonder there's so much mental health issues around, so many mental health issues. But there are changes, and there's some things I want to talk to you about today, things that are happening at a national sort of government level to address this. It's going to be actually part of the curriculum in not too long.
That sounds really exciting to hear. Okay, so if we just go back a little bit, I am excited to hear about it, and I'm sure all the viewers are as well, and the listeners. But let's just go back a bit. So one of the things that you were saying is about like loss. We know that grief and loss are very similar. So for children, they, it's an ending for them that they're not aware of. And I work a lot with endings, being a children's counsellor, and just helping them kind of go through an ending, and even working with me is an ending. So it's about almost being prepared from when I first start working with them. For some of them, it's, in the schools, it's short term, so it can be 8 sessions. In my practice, it can be longer, but it's also can be short as well. But it's that control that they've not got.
Absolutely.
And that is a lot to do with grief as well, is that, like, especially when you lose somebody, even if they're ill and that, they're coming to end of their life, it doesn't make it any easier.
Oh, not at all. And I think one of the people that's really at the forefront of all these changes and knows a lot about this, he actually came from his family were undertakers. It's a chap called John Adams, and he's just brought this book out. I've not told you about this, Sam. It's called Don't Tell the Children, because we don't, but we should. And this is one of the things he talks about in here is age-related understanding. So there's different, well, you'll know this, Sam, but, from like age under 5 and 5 to 8, 9 to 12, teenagers, children with learning difficulties. One of my children has actually got autism and ADHD, so it was very different for me trying to sort of manage Nathan's grief than it was to manage his twins and his younger brothers. But yeah, it's so important to talk to children and use the right language. Don't talk about them passing away or going to sleep or being a star or going to heaven.
Absolutely.
We try to be gentle, don't we? But in actual fact, it can do more harm than good. Just for an example, there's a lady who's wrote some journals for children, and when we say about not just being deaf, this lady's called Deborah Brown, and she used to be a head teacher. These are 3 of her books that she did first. She's done another, I think she's done another, there's going to be 6 in the series to start off with, but one of the first sort of losses that children experience can be a pet. Pet loss, which again it's called disenfranchised grief, because a lot of society don't think you should be upset about it. It's only a dog, it's only a cat, it's only a rabbit, it's only a goldfish, but it's not. They're part of your family, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So things like this can help. Also, people separating, that one's like when parents separate. One of the other titles that she's got, that I think she's just finished this one, is when someone goes to prison. And again, society today, there are a lot of parents that might be incarcerated. So all those things are losses, but they all come with grief.
Absolutely. And it's actually a big topic. It's something, like you said, different communities, different cultures, how they see it. But a lot of that is to do with being conditioned. So almost that intergenerational. So for those people who don't understand that, it's kind of something might happen to like your past generation. So maybe a grandparent or before them, and it's passed through.
That's right.
The generations, and then I was conditioned when I was young, and and it isn't people's fault. As I said, it's just come through the ages, through the eras, and it's until you're able to break that cycle and realize that actually, no, that isn't the way to feel about yourself. For instance, children should be seen and not heard. So we're expected to be really quiet and things like that. I mean, I'm not going to get on my soapbox this morning. But it's
before 12 o'clock anyway.
But it's about that kind of like, because that's what we were told when we were children, and loads of other ones as well. And I'm sure, people that are listening will have their own, and this isn't meant to trigger you. It's a really important topic to discuss. And I think what I've picked up from you as well, Tracy, is that you're wanting to kind of develop your understanding about grief, and we never know enough. We always want to know more, and our own understanding again comes from what we've been taught, which is
part of the training I've just done. It's just it sort of gave me a word for something that I didn't really know, and it, like, memes is the word that they use. So all these things like, be seen and not heard, or they've gone to a better place, or one that I have said to people, everything happens for a reason. Not that person has died for a reason, but like as a result of my parents dying, that my reason is now what I'm doing now. So some good has come from it, because my own experience has led me to think and realize that there are other people that want to still talk about their loved ones, but don't want to be stuck in that grief. They want to be able to feel more at peace with things, and that's what working with someone like yourself or doing the program that I've just learnt about will help them to do.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about the program that you've just done.
So the program that I've just done was developed by a gentleman, again, who came from a funeral director background. His family were funeral directors, and they call him Eric, and his second name just slips my mind. Klein, I think it is, Eric Klein. And he is have you heard of him? He's a Canadian. So the program that he developed is called Edutherapy, which is an therapeutic educational program that is a measured program. So it's an 8 to 10 week sessions, working through people's emotional pain. And I went we had to do the work as well as part of the training, which I must say was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but the most rewarding. I would go as far as to say it's been life-changing. That's how powerful it was.
So what was the work that you had to do, as well as like the theory side?
So the work we had to do was what we will deliver to anyone that comes to us for the help. So we had to look at our life events, work out, where we were, maybe had things that hadn't had closure, which when initially I thought I'm okay with my mum and dad's dying and death, because they were terminally ill, we knew, and we had time to do those things, but there were a lot of unresolved issues, not to do with my mum and dad, that have been holding me back, emotionally. So affecting my past, my present, and potentially my future. But I now feel I've got those tools, and that's what the program, does. It gives the people the tools to be able to deal with. I can go back and look at the things that I have resolved and think, well, actually, there's more to that, and do some more work. And something might come up next week that I think I can do the work on that. It doesn't have to get in my head and be affecting me anymore.
That's amazing. And I think, because you've got so much out of it as well, that it'll be able to help you. And I think a lot as well to do with grief is, and not even intentionally, but particularly like with clients, a lot that comes up is relationships, because it's ended. you know, or there's been things, or they might not have been able to say goodbye, or do you know what I mean? Those kind of moments. And like you said, it's all that unconscious level, because you know, you're saying to yourself, oh, I'm okay, you know, I've lost past family members and friends and things like that, and we almost like, right, okay, that's it, we've dealt with it, move on. However, it's there, it's still there, and it is that unsolved, isn't it, that kind of brings up thoughts and behaviors even when you least expect it.
One of the we had to look at 2 of our sort of relationships or losses or whatever, and one of the ones I did was on my mum, but it wasn't about a death, it was about our relationship and things that had happened. And I could remember back to my younger sister being born when I wasn't even 3. No, I wasn't. So two and a half going on 3, nearly 3, and that was my starting point for my relationship with my mum. And I worked through some of the things that sort of came up that I thought I were okay with, and I obviously wasn't, because I were an absolute mess when I did it. But when I'd done it, it was like somebody had lifted a boulder off my shoulders. That's really powerful stuff.
Really wonderful. So we can add the links in for anybody who feels that it might benefit them, especially if you feel that there's a lot that you've not been able to deal with because it's just not been the right time. But now listening to Tracy, it might be really helpful. Thank you so much for that, Tracy. So if we just go back to like when you were talking about the cafe, because I did hear you, that I've been really humbled to be part of that, even though it was through Zoom. And I think that's what was so powerful about it, was that as well as in person, because it's normally like in person or online, and you are able to manage both of that. Do you want to share a little bit more about how it works?
So I mean, I'm an absolute technophobe. I hate tech. It's a necessary evil. We've got to do it. It's like social media. I know. We got there eventually. So but I know that, you know, especially during COVID, it has, you know, been a lifesaver for people. You know, so we've been dragged into the 21st century, haven't we? We've been made to do it. But there are benefits, you know, to doing that. And one of them is that, yes, I've been able to offer a hybrid service. And I think I had thought about it, but one of the primary care, local primary care trusts got in touch with me and said they had a lady that they would want to refer to me. And she was housebound. So was there any way I could help her? And I said, yeah, just off the top of my head, I didn't know how I was going to do it at the time, but I went, yeah. I said, well, set up a Zoom or something, which is what I've done. So so each week I've got a Facebook page. I've got, once the people come and they give me permission to have their emails and phone numbers and whatever, I add them to a WhatsApp group if they want to. Well, I send them a link for a WhatsApp group, so I keep them posted in there with things. And it's a place that they can chat as well in between times, you know, if they want to chat. If there's anything, you know, comes up that's troubling them, or, you know, they just want to someone to talk to. So so I set up the Zoom links, put the links out on Instagram. No, I don't usually do it on Instagram. I usually do it on LinkedIn, because I have some people who've joined the cafes as a result of knowing me on that LinkedIn space. Facebook link as well, and put it out usually the night before, so that people, you know, don't sort of forget about it. And they can jump on there. There's 2 sessions. We have 2 venues and we alternate. So one week it's morning at a particular venue, the following week it's evening, and likewise at the other venue it's the alternate, which sounds a bit confusing, but it works. So when we're in the cafe, I set up the laptop, got speakers, and people can be part of the group. You know, they can interact with us, chat with us. We're going to be having some guest speakers coming in. You know, they can obviously be there for that if they want to be. So I've had people go off. So there's been like 2 people on Zoom, and they've had their own little conversation. You know, so we're in the cafe, been talking about things, and there's no agenda. You know, we don't set an agenda. It just and I go along with. I've got some conversation cards that are called Grave Talk, and They're
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah, I know. But they're really good. But in actual fact, we've never had to use them. So I
Okay.
take them along and I scatter them about, and there's like there's a category for community, so it might talk about different cultures, and or it might say, you know, what's your earliest memory of a loss, or it might be a flower's still relevant at a funeral, or you know, there's all these different categories, and I put them on the table, and I think, well, if anyone comes, you know, and they don't know what to talk about, they can pick one of them up and it'll start a conversation. But in actual fact, we've never had to use them. It just flows. Yeah.
Wonderful. And that's what I saw as well, the conversations with her, but the support, the like with each other was just so powerful, so empowering.
Yeah.
You know, even like there was space for if people got emotional and really struggled, and just that real reassurance. And that was so lovely to kind of see. And you've created that. And like you were saying about your niche and a niche being a safe space, that is exactly what the cafe is. It's a safe space for people, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's what I hope it is. And it's lovely to hear you say that. So even though you were on a screen,
Yeah.
you know, and we might not have been as interactive with you, because it was the first time we'd actually done it like we did it in an actual cafe, not just the community centre where we normally have it. We were actually in a cafe, but it was ours for the night. Do you know what I mean? There weren't other people there. But so even though, and a lot of those people on that night hadn't been before,
No.
you know, so it was. But even though they hadn't been before, the fact that you're saying you could feel that energy in the room, and that's what I have felt right from the very first one, that everybody held space for each other. You know, they weren't jumping in trying to give them solutions. They were just there, hearing them, you know, letting them say what they needed to say. You know, yeah, we've got lots of information. There's lots of signposting I can do as well, because I know a lot of people in the sort of the loss and grief community.
Yeah.
But primarily we are there as a safe space for people to come and just talk about things that the family get, or they think that the family are getting fed up of hearing, or the friends don't want to hear anymore. You know, they get uncomfortable, the friends are shuffling, and in their head they're thinking, why are they still wanting to talk about this, you know, 7 years later? Because we do.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so important that people are given that space to talk about it, because for some, it never goes away. And it's almost like, oh, it'll get easier. Will it?
Some things might.
Yeah.
And that one day it might be easier. Next day, you might be back to square one. You know, and that is grief. That's what grief does. Yeah.
Do you find at the cafe then that it's a certain kind of people that go?
We've got a real mixture of losses. You know, it could be widows, widowers, siblings, death by suicide. You know, there's a lot of cancer. What surprised me, and I really don't think it should have, but it hadn't really sort of occurred to me when I first started, was how much COVID has affected people. Not the disease, not the you know, but the impact of what happened to their loved ones during COVID. You know, people that had cancer that they couldn't go and see in hospital, that they'd got someone dying here and they had someone dying in another part of the country. They had to choose which one they went to visit, because they were told they couldn't visit both. You know, just, and I feel like it's a real tsunami, and you'll find it with children, working with children, that those children that were either born or were very young and, you know, lived through their early childhood development will have been affected by COVID, and will continue to be. And that's, you know, that's where people like yourself and me can help with things like that, because we know there's a problem. NHS, whatever, are getting swamped. You know, mental health services are getting swamped, and the number of times that I've heard people that have come to the cafe say that, oh, I rung such an organisation, I rung this charity, I rung that charity, or whatever, to be told, oh yes, you know, we'll do an assessment. Oh yeah, you do need help. That we've got nobody who can help you.
Yeah.
You know, the courage it takes to pick up that phone, to walk through someone's door, you know, to come to the cafe. I've had people pacing up and down outside, coming in, then going back out again, you know, because they didn't think they could do it. But the number of people that have gone somewhere, been told yes, they need help, but then told they can't get it because they just haven't got the resources.
And that's such a huge concern, isn't it? As I say, like you were saying, that like they're not even sure if they'll be invited, if they'll fit in, if they can do it, you know, like you say, just having that courage to be able to walk through that door is huge. And then, so I mean, it's brilliant that you're able to provide that space, especially if there's other charities and things that are not able to, because that, you know, they're oversubscribed, there's just not enough spaces, there's not enough resources. It's really difficult. And you were saying about like how it impacts children. Absolutely. And there's like certain like ages as well where it seems to have impacted them more to other, and I'm not going to go into that because that's, you know, private to families and things like that. But there is, you know, and I do get a lot of like parents contacting me because of lockdown, whatever reason it was. And, you know, I mean, we're in 2024 now, and it kind of finished around 2020, 21 roughly. I'm kind of forgetting my dates. But so we're at least 3 years ago, and it's now massively impacting. But it's also the impact of, like you say, grief and bereavement. And I think as well, when you go through that, there's a huge part where you feel isolated.
I think that's just one of the many. It's like, feels like a jigsaw puzzle that you know, there's pieces missing, because I think it will have affected like relationships and teaching, learning, friendships, you know, how to interact with people. You know, they're all losses because they've missed out on it. And your relationship with your child, you know, will be very different to what it would have been had they been going to school for all that time, or, you know, had they been able to go out and see their friends, or had they not been having to do it on a computer, because again, these are addictive, you know, and it's become, we've fueled that addiction in some ways because they had no choice. You know, the only way they could see their friends was through a phone or a computer or whatever. So
absolutely. And we're humans as well, and we need connection. So if we can't get it in person, then we're going to find an alternative way, aren't we? And like you say, using screens. I mean, it's huge, really, when you think about it. Where if you start breaking it all down, like you say, a jigsaw puzzle, and there's so many different reasons that having a place like what you provide, you know, the cafe, is just so important for people that would not even think about it at all. So if we talk a little bit about the book, that part to do with the course, would you be willing to share like some of the things that we're kind of told to say to children when there's a bereavement or a loss, to actually what would be beneficial? Do you have that?
The course itself is to work with children over 13.
Okay, so
it's not really about things to say to them, because it's working with them for them to find their way.
That makes sense,
just giving them the tools. But as I said, John's book I have not read it myself yet, but I know from the reviews and the people that I work with that have worked with John. John is the person who is leading the parliamentary. It's actually it had got to Parliament.
Okay.
Put it in the curriculum because and then obviously the general elections come along, so it's delayed things a little bit, but it will be going in the curriculum for secondary pupils. And as I say, in there it tells you about the ages, sort of the ages that it's sort of just let me see if I can just grab a.
What is it, Tracy, that's going in the curriculum?
It's
parents
put in bereavement on the curriculum, as in talking about loss and grief. So, well, whether it'll be part of what do they? I can't remember what they call it now when they do it at school. Like, what do they?
PSHE, maybe.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, we're trying to think of PSHE. It'll be part of that, from what I can gather. Yeah,
That's
but
really good. So
I think it's
secondary school children. Then.
Yeah, from what I've learned, where the edutherapy will be able to come in is working with employees of schools or whatever, to get those teachers or those TAs or whoever to do their own work, and then they will have the tools to be able to know how, and parents, because there was a lady on the course who said, how can I help my children? And by her doing the work, she will now have the tools to be able to help her children. So although she wouldn't be able to work with a child under 13 under license, she has got the tools herself to be able to work with her children, if that makes sense.
It certainly does. And it all starts with one person, doesn't it? And then it grows from there.
Yeah.
So how has this changed for you then, Tracy?
Well, as I say, the furniture I'm now doing less and less of. In fact, I haven't done any. The last piece I did, and it was a very meaningful piece. So it feels right for that to have been the last piece probably that I worked on. That was a rocking chair that belonged to a lady, a friend that, again, I met through networking, but has become a good friend. And she lost her husband very recently. But the furniture she bought to me was, it used to belong to a grandma, and it was a rocking chair. And she is a brand designer, so she knew what sort of colours and things she wanted. She sent me, it's on my Instagram page, you can have a look with her permission. And we did it. It was like a water scene. So it started off at the bottom of the chair like water, and then it went up to a sunrise, because the only thing she had this, that there's the only thing that she had of her grandma's, but her grandma had dementia, and the only thing grandma could remember was the words to "You Are My Sunshine."
Oh wow.
So yeah, so that's how we did so I'm sort of coming to that end of that phase, and like some of your families might be much younger than ourselves, but I'm not putting you in the same category as me, Sam. I know you're not 60, but you know, I'm 60 this year, and as you go through life, you know, you do progress and develop and pivot and go in different directions. So for me, that 7 years has been, you know, like the best 7 years, because I've been able to help so many people with the furniture. But I now know that my sort of call in my direction has changed, because I'm now doing the cafes, and I will be able to do the edutherapy alongside that, because as part of the CIC, we're a not-for-profit organisation, but we do have to ask for funding. You know, we do have to apply for funding, which at the moment, because there's so much need for different CICs for lots of people in CICs are to do with wellness and well-being and crafting and, you know, all sorts of things. But because there's so many people asking for that funding, obviously it gets more and more difficult to try and get it. So, you know, there will be a cost attached to what I do, but it will be like a paying on, so that, you know, that those people can pay forward, so we can help the next lot of people. So yeah, that's my changes, and I'm really excited about it.
I'm excited for you. It sounds amazing. And now that you, like you say, you found your calling, you know what feels right for you. It just feels so wonderful as well.
Yeah.
So I've absolutely loved talking to you this morning and finding out about where you are. We haven't finished yet. Go yet, sorry. So we come to the part like where we do the top tips. So so have you got 3 top tips this morning?
Yeah, I think one of them I've already touched on, about talking to your children using the correct terminology. Don't be frightened about saying the word death, you know, and if they ask what that is, tell them. you know, tell them that, look it up, Google it. You know, if you're not sure how to tell you, if you ask Google, how do I tell my child about death? It'll come up. Something will come up. You know, do it now before you need to do it. You know, if you know now, if something happened to one of your loved ones tomorrow and you had to explain that to that child, how will you explain it to them? They won't be frightened if you tell them. They only become frightened, or, you know, like, just for example, the lady that wrote these books, they had a little girl in school who, she was a head teacher, and the mum had come to her and said, so-and-so has lost grandma, but she's not, there's been no emotion, there's been nothing, and she still keeps talking about her as though she's coming back. So they spoke to her in school, and the words they had chosen to tell the little girl about grandma was that grandma's passed. So the little girl, when they actually unpicked everything, thought grandma had gone to the shop, because every day grandma passed their door to go to the shop and buy her sweets. And on this occasion, she hadn't come back. But she didn't know why she hadn't come back. So it's thinking about, as I say, not being worried to use the proper words.
And which we use.
Yeah, which we use. And like those of us that have worked in education know, and if you've got young children, you'll know that part of the curriculum now is to talk to youngsters about the proper words for their genitalia. And that came about because of things, safeguarding things that had happened in the past. Yeah. So, you know, we don't call it a, you know, willy anymore, we'd call it a penis, you know, and young children will know them words. You know, and it's just normal, it becomes normal language. So it's breaking those taboos. So tip number one, break those taboos.
Brilliant.
Second one, if you've got children, and again, I'm no expert in this, and this is something I need to do, I have a will in place. I will say, have a will. You are never too young to have a will.
Okay.
You know, there's a program, what did they call it? Find It, I think it was called Finding Alice, or something to do with Alice. If you can find it, watch it. And that will explain why you need a will. It's a drama, and I can't even think of the actress's name now, but her partner died without a will, and it showed you all the problems that kicked up. You know, it doesn't have to cost a fortune to get a will, you know, but get a proper will. You can change it, you know, you can change them anytime. You can tweak them, amend them as you go through your life, but get a will in place. Don't assume that, you know, the granny will be able to look after him, or that, you know, whatever. You can't make any assumptions. Go and find out for yourselves the proper information about a will, and lasting powers of attorney. Really important. That's the thing I haven't done yet, and I need to. Okay, but yes, do it.
Okay.
And never be afraid to start over. That's tip number 3. So, you know, I've been divorced. I have 3 children, 3 young children. Well, how old were they? 6 and just going up to secondary school when I made the decision that I wanted to end my 24-year marriage. It was scary, and I thought, no, I can never. The main thing was being able to afford to keep that family home. I didn't want to have any more disruption for my children than I needed to. And I thought, you know, how can I do this? I truthfully, and that's one of the things I worked on last week, stayed in that marriage way longer than I should have done. But it was all those fears and anxieties and what ifs and oh no, I can't, that held me back. If I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have been married for 24 years. Don't be afraid. Look, you can do it. And I came to the realization, I thought, well, so-and-so's doing it. So-and-so's done it. You know, how did they do it? And I Googled it. You know, I was there at 4 o'clock in the morning. I knew I was going to end that relationship, but I needed to know where I stood, like from a, what do they call it? Your child, working tax credits and things like that. And to be honest, I had more money, and I'm not saying, you know, this is like leaning on benefits. You are entitled to that working tax credit. And I comfortably was able to stay in my family home, partly because my ex-husband did contribute. You know, I'm not saying he didn't, and I'm not saying everyone's circumstances are the same, but, you know, do Don't be stuck in a relationship thinking you can't do it, because you can. Yeah. So that's
no, wonderful.
and your children will, you know, thank you for it.
Absolutely. I just want to say that family tax credits has now changed to universal credit.
Well, it might be very different then, as we're talking like how many years ago now? I can't even remember.
Yeah, just if anybody's listening thinking, wait a minute, I don't know what that is.
Years ago. No, but there will still be support, I'm sure. And I'm not saying it's easy, you know, by any means, but it's easier than being in a relationship that's, you know, not working.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
certainly. So thank you so much for your wonderful tips. So where can people find you, Tracy?
Okay, so the easiest thing, the first thing would be to go on to Facebook and look on Life After Loss Cafes. I think I'm cafe or cafes, just let me have a quick look. I'll look myself. So yeah, and on there, you can obviously reach out to me on Messenger there if you're on there, and I can give you links to other things. Instagram, I can give Sam the links, but it's Found My Niche _ 24 or something. My website is like almost there. I do have a QR code which will take you to the website, which says website coming soon. I've just got to get all my terms and conditions and policies into them for them to do. So yeah, so I'll give Sam the links, but yeah, if you go on Life After or Google, if you go on Google, there's I have a Google My Business, which is now on Google Maps. I don't know why, but it's on Google Maps. Yeah, so if you were to type in Google grief cafes or grief support in Doncaster, various things will come up, working my way up the rankings, but I am on there as well.
Yay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tracy. Wow, it's just been so wonderful talking to you, but also like hearing how your story's changed as well. And, you know, even though you was almost stuck, because we get stuck, don't we?
Yeah.
Now you kind of see that flow and you're able to move on, but also inspire others as well. And that's what it's about as well, isn't it? You know, when we feel inspired, then we're able to inspire others as well.
Yeah, and when we're feeling better in ourselves, we can help our little people, you know, we can help our partners, our, you know, our work colleagues. Yeah.
Brilliant. So thank you so much for coming on. So thank you everybody for listening or viewing. We are on Spotify, so you can see us on video, or if you prefer, you can just listen to it. It is your choice. If you've listened, please give me a rating. I would love to know how you're finding them. There's about 5 or 6 on there now, so he's feeling really excited. And I will be back soon with another episode. Thank you so much, Tracy, and see you all for now. Bye.
Bye, everyone.